It's the season opener for year 2 of Kalen DeBoer as Alabama travels down to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Crimson Tide and the Seminoles. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in as always. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. And as always, we are powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. The Alabama Crimson Tide kick off year 2 of the Kalen DeBoer era as they travel down to Tallahassee, Florida to take on Mike Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles. And one could argue the disrespect may be handled accordingly, or at least that's what we've been told to this point. Again, we are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this season opening matchup between the Crimson Tide and the Seminoles. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my partner in crime, one of the best in the business, Cole the Bear Thompson, back at it yet again. Mr. Thompson Tech, how we doing? Kickoff is finally here for Alabama.
So here is a stat that I saw this morning that definitely is going to lower the expectation of the Alabama Crimson Tide faithful. Every single week since 2021, there's been a top 10 team to lose on the road to an unranked opponent. It happened again, and probably the most iconic one was last season against Georgia Tech. Top 10 Florida State team. Year before that was Clemson losing to Duke. There's one game to look for where a top 10 team travels on the road to face off against an unranked ACC opponent. And boy, oh boy, Florida State would have a field day if they were able to pull off this upset. Don't think it happens, but you know what? History doesn't lie. And history is saying that there could be crazy things happening down at Doe Campbell Stadium on a Saturday afternoon in Tallahassee.
Yeah, Bear, not to spoil the predictions, but yeah, I think streaks may be made to be broken, or history is made to be changed, if you will, at some point. Certainly, Alabama is hoping so. Again, high expectations of the Crimson Tide. It starts Saturday, August the 30th at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on Fox in Tallahassee, Florida at Doak Campbell Stadium. Alabama is a minus 13.5 point favorite. The over-under is set at 50.5. By the way, Bear, I said Fox. This game is actually on ABC. I do apologize. It's an ABC game. Again, Bama, a 2-touchdown favorite, or just under it at minus 13.5. The over-under at 50.5. Bama leads this all-time series, Bear, 3-1-1. And the last meeting between these two teams came in 2017 when Alabama won that game 24-7 in Atlanta, Georgia, you might recall. As we move into this football game, Bear, in the top storylines, first I'll say is this. Great helmet game. This is a game between, I think we can call Florida State somewhat of a blue blood. Is that fair to call them a blue blood of college football? Is that a stretch a little bit? An iconic. They're an iconic brand. They're at least an iconic brand. Maybe
it's
the
a
blue
brand
blood
game for sure. Let's go with that.
It's a brand. It's a helmet game, right? Seeing that obviously that crimson helmet with the numbers on it, seeing that gold helmet with the spear. It is a helmet game for sure. But what happens on the field between these two teams is most important. Bear, we have to start with this. And I think what's been interesting, we go back to SEC Media Days and we were talking to Deontay Lawson and Caden Proctor and some of the other guys that were there. The Tommy Castellanos comments have been a big talking point, but I think the way that they almost weren't a talking point for the Crimson Tide, the way they handled it, I think is maybe even more scary than if they'd have come out talking their junk and talking that back to Florida State. They simply said the disrespect will be handled accordingly. When Tommy Castellanos came out, said that, and I'm paraphrasing, Alabama's essentially not scary anymore without Nick Saban. Like he had some other words for, we're going to go down there and show him. He's kind of followed up on that as well and sort of doubled and tripled down on it. Bear, once you get in between those white lines, right, and you play the game, the emotions and everything, they kind of go to the wayside. It's about execution. It's about fundamentals. I get that. That being said, Bear, I am expecting a Bama team that is going to be playing with their hair on fire, ready to make a point.
Look, I will say this. You went 2-10 last season in Tallahassee. You couldn't beat anybody to save your life. You had fans that were talking about shoving burritos up their pine holes because of it got so dark and depressing.
Whoa. Hold on. Before you go any further, I apologize. Has that kid eaten the poop yet? Because that might just alter this entire.
Exactly. Is he going to do it?
I don't think he has. I don't think he has.
Can you imagine if he's waited the entire year right before kickoff and then goes, "This one's for you, Tommy," and it just goes funneling down?
I wish I could somehow like fire off this link on social media. I'd love for that kid to jump on here live and do it as kind of like a sacrifice. Like we need it live on air. We need it. I don't want to watch, but we need it live on air.
But you went 2-10 last season. You had the most underwhelming, undervalued, and honestly disgusting season. Like, there was bad in football last season. Then there's Florida State. I mean, like, there has never been a worse season I've seen in my life from a Power 4 program than what we watched last season. So, you know what? I respect Tommy Castellanos for talking his game and not being afraid to be his most authentic self, because that wins in the locker room. That wins on setting the tone. And also, after going 2-10, what more do you have to lose? Genuinely, what more do you have to lose? The only place to go from here is more to the center of the core of misery. It's all up. But with that being said, probably not against Alabama as the team I would do it. This was one of the best defenses to close out 2025. Kane Womack had the ability to really transcend this unit and be the backbone of this organization en route to a 9-3 season. And even though they didn't talk about it at SEC Media Days, they were quick to the point, direct on what they thought about this entire thing. They made it clear. You and I both know what college football practices are like. That comment, that article on On3 is hanging in the lockers. It is being played over and over and over again in the workouts. You know that he said stuff at ACC Media Days in Charlotte later on in the next month and then doubling down. That clip is being played on repeat up there. So, yeah, Tommy Castellanos, if you end up backing it up, you look like a hero. You look like one of the greatest players to ever grace Tallahassee with playing in your first game. But also, Alabama fans don't need to address it, or Alabama players aren't addressing it when it comes to the media standpoint. That's never been the Alabama way. They make it clear. We get in between those white lines. We hear the whistle go. All bets are off. It's a prison guard for us. We're ready to go ahead and pounce. That's what we want. That is what we believe we're going to do. And by the way, best of luck to you, because we're not taking it easy. We're not going to just go ahead and say it's the fourth quarter up by double digits. Hey, you know what? It was all fun and games. No, time to pay the piper, and business will be handled accordingly.
Yeah, Bama's taking the approach, Bear, that what's understood need not be explained. And I think there's a shot that Kane Womack and that Alabama defense are going to make Florida State understand what is already understood by them, if you will. Bear, it's the low-hanging fruit, but let's talk about it. I think the big storyline for Bama here is the quarterback position, right? We've talked all off season long. Quarterback is the pick to click. Well, listen, against Florida State on the road, you never know. Like, Florida State will probably not have more confidence in any point this season than they have in game one. That's one of the reasons season openers are so tricky. Everybody's 0-0. Nobody's thrown a pick. Nobody's fumbled the football. Nobody's made a blunder or an error. Everybody's confidence is sky high. Everybody's going to win the national championship. So you're going to get Florida State's best shot. So whatever you think about the Noles or not, and you are in Tallahassee, I would expect it to be a pretty good environment. Again, it might be the best environment they have all year, depending on how the season goes. Bear, Ty Simpson's debut as QB1, I think all eyes are going to be on him fairly enough. I know certainly I'm excited to see what he can do because, as we've said all offseason and preseason, and a lot of us, you and I included, we have high expectations for the Crimson Tide, and I know you and I both agree. Quarterback's the pick to click. Does Ty Simpson click out of the gate? I'll be intrigued to see it.
It's also going to have to be really important for him to click early because of what you don't know about the running back position. With the Jam Miller injury factoring on in, now you don't know what is going to be your overall status at that spot. Doesn't mean that Daniel Hill and Dre Washington and the other players that you have in the building can't end up hitting it. Doesn't mean that they can't end up being really good complementary pieces, but your entire offensive personnel this offseason was built around Jam being the lead back. So now that you don't know what that role is going to be, now what you got with Richard Young coming on in, it seems like he is going to see a majority of the reps with the first team offense. You got to be able to strike. And again, this is a quarterback that, despite us not seeing him play that often, he was a former 5-star. He was good enough to land in Nick Saban's system. And better yet, he was good enough to convince Kalen DeBoer, You don't need to go out into the transfer portal and land a guy. You don't need to go out and trust that Austin Mack, a player that you handpicked to be your quarterback at Washington, is a better fit than me. I'm showing you that I am the best thing for this team. And I'm proving it by building a relationship with Jeremy Bernard, building a relationship with Ryan Williams, making sure that I'm reading the right sides of the field, not making mental mistakes in practice. Basically, Ryan Grubb has been talking about Ty Simpson as the starting quarterback since the start of spring practice. But the way that I viewed this battle was never, it was Ty Simpson's job to win. It was his job to lose. He never lost it. So you got to feel good about the direction that you're going in with a quarterback that now has shown you 2 straight years in a row. I am the right guy to be QB2. Let me show that I'm the right guy to be QB1. Having said that, this is going to be a really intriguing game on the opposing side because a lot of people look at this Florida State defense and probably are saying to themselves, well, it was Florida State last year. What's changed? A lot, actually. They went and they hired Tony White from Nebraska. In my opinion, it was the best hire of the ACC in the offseason. This was a guy that had a top 20 scoring defense with the Huskers last season. They allowed less than 20 points per game. Also, they had one of the best total defenses in college football, 17th in the country. And they went out in the transfer portal and they got massively upgraded in multiple spots. You look at the overall roster right now. They went and they brought in Elijah Herring from Memphis. They went and they brought in Dante McCray on the defensive line. They went and they landed James Williams, the pass rusher. They went and they brought in Jeremiah Wilson. So it's a lot of unknown new for Florida State, which again, that's kind of a good thing because of the way that this team played last season. You would have thought Alabama would hang 70 on them. Right now, they have a really good defensive coordinator that I think is probably top 10 in the country when it comes to the way he schemes up plays. This is going to be a tough challenge, I think, for Ty Simpson. As much as we want to say that Alabama is going to march on in and deliver justice, there's going to be some hiccups. It's a young quarterback. Let me phrase that. It's a new quarterback, a new DC, where a lot of them are looking to prove themselves as the right option. Let's see it on the field. Let's see who ends up standing out more.
I want to move to Florida State, Beer. I'll let you kind of expand on them if you like, because it is interesting. You look at their roster, and I think one of the things that makes this game intriguing, certainly makes them intriguing. I mean, Mike Norvell has gone back to the well when it comes to transfer portal players. I mean, you think about last year, and I think a lot of the consensus was, hey, it's a team full of mercenaries that maybe mailed it in early. And I mean, that team was cooked from the jump, right? I mean, I remember watching them lose to Memphis and thinking this season is all but over and we're only a couple weeks in. Obviously, you mentioned it started with the Georgia Tech loss and they inexplicably lost to Boston College, ironically enough, Tommy Castellanos in week 2. And again, it fell apart really, really early and really quickly. Bear, I could ask you yet again, like, what do we know about Florida State? I mean, you look at their offense. All three, the wide receiver position, it's just transfer, left tackle transfer, left guard transfer, center transfer, right tackle transfer. Their quarterback's a transfer. They've got other guys that are depth pieces that are transfer, one at the tight end spot. I mean, there's 5, 6, 7, 8 transfers within their 2 deep on the defense. It's intriguing because it makes Florida State unpredictable, I think, when you have this many new faces. And I mean, some of these guys with talent, like we know a name Squirrel White, right? Like we know him very well on the offensive side at receiver. So we're going to learn a lot about Florida State here. I think we might learn more about Florida State than we will Alabama. Like if Alabama goes out there and pounds Florida State, I don't think it necessarily means that Bama's a lot to win the SEC by any stretch. But I mean, if Florida State goes out, puts on a good showing, maybe it tells us something about the Seminoles. So I'm fascinated by what we're going to learn about this Florida State team because I just don't feel like I know much of anything about them.
Florida State has one returning starter on the offensive side, Landon Thomas, and he was good last season in terms of what you expect for a freshman to kind of have a solid start. That's it. Everyone else is new. Now, here's what I will say. A lot of the newness is players with experience. Now, can it all gel together is going to be another question, but at least you have guys that have played and had substantial roles with former teams. We mentioned Squirrel White. Squirrel White has played against Alabama's defense. Last season, he had his opportunities to shine in the third Saturday in October. He has been a wide receiver that people have talked about in a high prominent light because of his straight line speed. You bring in Deuce Robinson from USC. At one point, he was viewed as a top 5 wide receiver recruit, and it just feels like he wasn't properly utilized in Lincoln Riley's offense out in the West Coast. So now he gets to go to Gus Malzahn's offense. You bring in multiple starters from the offensive line, whether it be from Vanderbilt, whether it be from Ole Miss, whether it be from Wake Forest. So It's guys who have proven experience, at least seeing reps. But here's the way that I look at it. There's two trains of thoughts. There's always we're going to go out, we're going to add in a bunch of transfer portal players. We're going to go land a slew of new names, and it's going to feel that way. It's going to look that way because if everyone is playing on a different offense, everybody is playing with a different personnel. They don't know how to mesh properly. They don't know how to gel. They don't know how to actually build a rapport because if everyone is learning at a different pace. But then there's the other way of we bring in all these new transfers. They clicked so instantaneously. Basically, we took the hand-me-downs of all of college football and created it to be a sustainable roster and made it something that was actually pretty promising. I don't know which way to feel about that. Like, if you told me that this game was being played in week 7, week 8, middle of the year, and we get a couple of film studies on Tommy Castellanos, and we see what Roydell Williams can be as a lead back, and we see what Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White are being as wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Maybe you feel a little bit more confident if you're Florida State. Maybe you start to say, hey, listen, it's a lot of newness, but it's a lot of good too. A lot of things that we like, the direction of this team. The big question that I have, though, is how quickly can it all come together? And is it going to come together for week 1 where you can at least be somewhat of a manageable matchup? Because that, again, is going to be substantial, I think, for a team like Florida State.
Bear, when I take a look at this game, you mentioned, obviously, Jan Miller will not be participating in this football game, and I am really intrigued to see guys like Richard Young, Daniel Hill, some of the others you mentioned, Dre Washington, tote the rock. It starts up front for me for Alabama. Both lines of scrimmage, right? And we're high on both. I mean, especially the front seven defensively. For all that chatter that Tommy Castellanos had, I think he's going to be running around quite a lot in this football game. I think Alabama will be able to get them behind the sticks, if you will, and make life really, really difficult when it comes to third down conversions and just moving the football with any consistency. But no matter who's toting the rock on the offensive side, I really want to see the offensive line dominate, like flat out, just dominate, get a push. The thing that's going to help a guy like Ty Simpson out in his first career start is a running game. And I don't care who's back there toting the rock. These guys all have talent. It's Alabama. They got a bunch of running backs who are really highly talented players. I want to see Alabama go out there and literally pave the way for whoever's toting the rock. The offensive line was solid last year. It wasn't great. It wasn't a typical Alabama offensive line. I think setting the tone in the trenches early, man, I think that's one of the things I most want to see because you do that, you're able to establish balance early. I mean, I have a lot of confidence with Ty Simpson throwing to guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton. The offense is going to be just fine. So I think setting a tone in the trench is going to be important. And Bear, setting a tone just across the board. Listen, I've talked to you. I've talked to our guy Dave. I got a lot of Alabama buddies. Talking to them, their number one concern over the offseason, the thing that they griped about the most, it wasn't, hey, can we go beat Georgia this year? Can we go beat if we see Texas? Can we go, beat the elites? The concern, Bear, was, are we going to beat the teams we're supposed to? That was the biggest concern after what happened against Vandy, what happened against Oklahoma, what happened in Knoxville. That was a little bit of a different circumstance. That was the thing I think they were the most frustrated about. And admittedly, Bear, last year, like even against the lesser competition, it didn't look like Bama. Like we're used to Bama not beating people lesser competition, pulverizing them. And with all due respect to Florida State in a game like this, Bear, you are a 2-touchdown favorite. You are supposed to win the football game. I want to see Alabama go out there from the jump and establish that. Like, leave no doubt. We came in. We were supposed to dominate. We did dominate. I think a lot of that obviously starts in the trenches, but with the entire football team as a whole, go out there and dominate a team that you're supposed to beat.
Alabama gave up 24 sacks last season. I don't care how much you say that is, year 1 to year 2 kind of transition. 24 sacks should never be a lot of Alabama. It just shouldn't, especially with the type of talent that you bring on in, the type of talent that you're able to recruit, and the way that you develop the offensive line, the way that we talk about them making the transition to the Sunday game. And a lot of the games that we talk about, again, it was in matchups against the inferior teams. It wasn't against Georgia. It wasn't against LSU. It was, hey, we're watching as Jalen Milroe is running for his life behind Oklahoma. We're watching as Jalen Milroe is struggling to find success against Vanderbilt's defensive line. And again, Florida State has a lot of new pieces to where maybe it ends up being a really good unit by the season's end, but it's week 1. You got to be able to set the tone. You got to be able to show that you can handle business in any environment against any opposing team and in any situation. And that right now is going to be the priority number one, I think, for Alabama's offense. I agree with you with the offensive line. They're going to have to be the big selling point. You bring in two new starters. One is a transfer in Cam Dewberry. The other one is you're moving Thornberry into the full-time starting role at right tackle. But there's also a lot of continuity back there. You have Caden Proctor, who decided to come on back for another season. At the season's end, may have been playing like the best tackle in college football. You Parker Brailsford decided to come on back. He's going to be in the running for the Ringmanton Trophy. He's one of the better interior offensive linemen. You did lose Tyler Booker, but you got to feel good about where the rest of the offensive line is just overall. That's a thing that you look at and praise the ability of what they've been able to accomplish over the last few years, whether it be with you're bringing in who is it, Geno Van Merk, you have Jaden Roberts who still is back there. So there's a lot of continuity to where you feel like that they should be able to keep Ty Simpson upright. And again, the other thing I look at, you no longer have that blessing of a quarterback that's mobile. Jalen Milroe was able to bail you out of trouble from time to time because of his dual threat mentality, his ability to see that the pressure was coming in, the pocket was collapsing. So I'm just going to step on up, work my way past the outside linebacker, pick up a gain of 15. Ty Simpson is athletic, but Ty Simpson is not the same type of athletic that we're talking about when it's a Jalen Milroe. So how quickly can your offensive line establish itself dominantly? Because you and I both agree, this is probably one of the better wide receiver rooms in college football. They have three guys that certainly can go for 1,000 yards. They have 4 or 5 guys that you're looking in the wings that could be really solid number 3s this year that are going to get maybe 10, 12 receptions at the most. And it may come in the fourth quarter of blowout games. That's how good they have it at that wide receiver spot. But none of it matters if your quarterback is sitting behind the line of scrimmage and he can't get a pass off. So I'm going to be looking at that. I'm also going to be looking at how well are they able to contain Tommy Castellanos. Again, last season, Diego Pavia had his field day at times with Alabama's defense. Jackson Arnold had a field day at times in the open field against Alabama's defense. Their abilities to play behind the line of scrimmage, wait for somebody to open up, or wait for a crease to open up, allowed them to set the tone in this matchup and put them in a position where things could get out of control. Tommy Castellanos got benched at Boston College, but he did come back in a 14-point swing in the fourth quarter against Missouri's defense when he was playing at Boston College. Remember, that game went down to the wire. Missouri got up to a substantial lead. Here comes Tommy C. They end up having him run all over the place. And lo and behold, we got a ball game and we got a baller down in the middle of this battle in Farote Field to close out the fourth quarter. How do you contain him? Do you have a spy on him? Are you playing Deontay Lawson full speed? We don't know his stats for this game just yet. Are you having maybe a Husky role that's going to be basically channeling in wherever he goes, I follow? That's going to be really important too. Because I think that the interior defensive line is going to win for Alabama. I think Alabama is going to get after this front five for Florida State. But they do have that mobile quarterback. And all it takes is one play, third and long, turn into a first down, momentum shifts in favor of Florida State in front of the fans.
Bear, that being said, Bama, Florida State in Tallahassee, the season opener. Finally, kickoff is upon us. Let's lock in some predictions here. Do you want the honors or do you want me to lead this?
I'll let you go first. I'll handle the next one.
Okay, got you. First off, really excited to see this Bama team take the field, Bear. You and I are both very high on them. I've said all offseason I am buying stock into Ty Simpson, buying stock into Alabama. If you've seen my predictions, I've got them going 11-1, going to the SEC title, winning the SEC title. You and I both have those predictions. So really excited to see this team take the field and get a first look. Bear, it is a season opener. Season openers are really unpredictable. We have no idea. There's so much newness, especially when I look at this Florida State team. I think that's one thing that maybe can give you some concern, or at least you're curious about, is just what is Florida State? I mean, how do they recover from going 2-10 a season ago? Mike Norvell's job is essentially on the line this season, or at least there's some very uncomfortable conversations being had in Tallahassee right now. It's a proud program, a program accustomed to winning. How long do we really expect them to stay down? I mean, again, Bear, just 2 years ago, we were having conversations about them getting snubbed from the college football playoff, and all of a sudden they go 2-10 last year. So how quickly things can change. Last season for Kalen DeBoer, year one, well documented. It was disappointing. I'm just calling it for what it is. You missed the college football playoff in Tuscaloosa. It's unacceptable. And there's a feeling, obviously, you and I both know very well. it is college football playoff or bust. Not necessarily because Kalen DeBoer would be going anywhere, but it's just not meeting the standard of Alabama football. You and I were at SEC Media Days, Bear, and I feel like the takeaway that we had was there was a quiet confidence and there was a chip on the shoulder with this Alabama football team. They know they fell short last year. They know they did, right? And I think they've been hearing about it all offseason. There have been people that have been writing checks that have not been going checked, if you will. Receipts have not been checked. People like Tommy Castellanos have been able to say whatever they want to say. And I feel like Alabama's just been like, okay. What's understood will be explained very shortly. Bear, I think Alabama's going to go into Tallahassee and put belt to ass. I expect Alabama to dominate this game from the jump. Maybe there are some moments like you were talking about where Tommy Castellanos can make things interesting because of his scrambling ability, because he's able to improvise. And they did add some nice pieces in the portal. Don't get me wrong. But I think top to bottom, Alabama is a better football team. I think they come out, play hair on fire, play with an edge. They want to make a point. And like they said earlier this offseason, Bear, the disrespect will be handled accordingly. I think the disrespect is handled accordingly at the hands of a 38-17 win for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think it's a successful debut for Ty Simpson. I think Alabama dominates both lines of scrimmage. And again, Bear, I just think after all the chatter of the offseason, after what happened last year and people feeling like Alabama has fallen off some cliff, this isn't Nick Saban's Bama anymore. Well, maybe it's not, but I think Kalen DeBoer's version of Alabama is going to be pretty good too. And at minimum in this season opener, they're going to go out and prove that. 38-17, I got the Crimson Tide.
Number one, we get college football back on our screens, and we get a game between two teams that have a lot of expectations this year. Now, the differing of expectations is certainly well documented. For Florida State, it's getting back to being respected in the ACC. It's getting back to showing that the program and the direction that we're going with Mike Norvell is sustainable. For Alabama, it's we're not going to lose the games that we're supposed to win. We're going to show why we are still one of the 12 best teams every single season and why we can win a national title. And I think both things can be true in this matchup. It doesn't come down to a win for Florida State to show that they are trending in the right direction. You being able to force a couple of takeaways, you being able to show that the addition of Tony White as your defense coordinator puts you in a great position to build upon this for the other games that you have later on in the year. Florida, NC State, when you face off against Miami, those are all games that could eventually help you get back to 9-3, 10-2, maybe a sleeper for the college football playoff if things go according to plan. What I will say is that this is a game, in my opinion, Alabama needs to show out. I think a lot of people are doubting Florida State. And you know what? It's well-deserved. After what we saw last season, after how much turnover with this roster is, there's a lot of people who would say, you know what? Florida State doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Alabama doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion. This is a Crimson Tide team that on paper, for my money, is the most complete in college football. I don't worry about their wide receiver room. I don't worry about their depth on the defensive line. I don't worry about their depth at linebacker. I think they have the number one secondary in the sport. And it all comes down to quarterback play. I'm not asking Ty Simpson week 1 to end up becoming Kenny Hill 2.0 like he did against South Carolina, score 5 touchdowns, and we're creating a trademark for him. I'm asking you to show why you are the right guy for this job. Why after 2 years of waiting, hearing that you couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe, you couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe a second year with a new offensive coordinator, with a new head coach, with an offense that better is predicated to your strengths, you were right to stick around because if you knew that when your time came, you weren't going to relinquish the reins. I think he does that. I think it's going to be a very polished game from Ty Simpson. I think that you will see this offense take flight. I think that you will see the ability to trust the run game outside of just a Jam Miller. I think you will get a couple of big-time explosive plays. But I also think that we're going to learn a lot about Florida State in this game. Chris, I see the money line on what it is at 4.5 in favor of Florida State, 5.5 going into this season and win totals. I'm hammering it. I believe that you will see change with Gus Malzahn as the offensive coordinator. You will see Tony White make a lot of good adjustments to where this team is competitive in every single matchup, including the first half of this Alabama game. I think it's going to be a very close call, and Alabama fans are going to be clutching their pearls, throwing the houndstooth hats, burning the shakers at the stake. And then we get to the third quarter, and Alabama says, you know what? It's time to go to work. Now we're going to deliver justice. And Alabama wins by double digits. I think it's at least a 13-point swing in the first half. Ultimately, I think Alabama comes out 38-17 final score. Doak Campbell Stadium is rocking until it gets very quiet in the fourth quarter. The Crimson Tide start off a brand new era, 1-0 with Kalen DeBoer. And by the way, this isn't a Nick Saban-led team. But Kalen DeBoer took a roster that went 4-8 the year prior and led them to a 11-win season, then doubled down and win to a national championship. Guy knows how to coach. Guy knows how to recruit. Guy knows how to fix problems. Guy fixed the problem out in Seattle. He's fixing the problem in Tuscaloosa to make sure that last season was a one and done for the Crimson Tide faithful.
So we're both going Bama big. I will follow up on this. And guys, just in case you're wondering, we will have a FanDuel best bet segment every single week where we'll lock in picks. I love Bama minus 13.5, Bear. I do. I just, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm drinking the Kool-Aid for Alabama going into the season. I think they covered the 13.5. The better, like it. If you take Florida State, you're banking on the far lesser team to do something that I don't know that they can do. I think it would take Alabama playing very poorly, Ty Simpson struggling. So I'll take Bama minus 13.5. Again, we'll talk more about that during game week, and we'll do that every single game week, locking in those best bets presented by our friends over at FanDuel. But should be a fun one down in Tallahassee, Bear. You and I, again, both going with the Crimson Tide to win big, and what I think feels like the right pick. So that being said, I was just speaking on our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, before we get out of here, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel because, as always, we are brought to you by FanDuel. On Tuesday, August 26th, it's FanDuel Futures Day, a new holiday for football fans. Just 24 hours of deals on all your football season predictions. So take a flyer on the MVP race, whether it's Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, whoever it might be. You can crown your champion in August. Maybe you think it's the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, someone else, or parlay your division winner dark horses. Mark your calendars. This is your day for your hunches, your hot takes, your calls, and your odds. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. When you sign up, guys, make sure you do so over at FanDuel.com/SECU. That's FanDuel.com/SECU. FanDuel, play your game. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Drop us your predictions in the comments below. Who do you think wins this one, Florida State or Alabama? In the meantime, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. Till next time, for the Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on the other side.